All right, guys. So, sorry for that delay. We had a bit of a technical issue over here. All right, so guys, if you can hear me, go ahead and drop a message in the chat. I want to see those that are joining us. Oh, hello, Olamide. Um, Hi, Roland. Okay, so let's invite the others to join. We have couple of folks that are yet to join from, I think, the Telegram channel. So let's drop that message on Telegram. Let's also have that message shared on the Discord community so we can have others join in. Welcome on board. This is our first live class. Oh, okay. So I can see the message coming in now. Yeah. All right. So, Amaka, I'm saying this is our first class for the cohort 4.0, starting off with UI UX. So, welcome, everyone. Welcome on board. Hi, Amaka. Can you hear me?
Hi, Marv. I can hear you loud and clear. Good evening.
Yeah. Good evening. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Okay. Hi, Florence. Good evening. Good evening, Christophobe. Okay. So, I see that most people were not able to join the first onboarding session on Telegram. So what I would advise us to do is to check out the session that was held on Telegram. It was recorded, and I think it was also uploaded on YouTube. So if you're following us, if you're subscribing, if you're already subscribed on YouTube, sorry, you can check our channel, right? And I'm sure you would see that video, right? The moderators would also share a link to that video on Telegram. If you're already on Telegram, maybe you should have seen it. If you haven't seen it, it will be shared with you. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's get started. What we are going to do is to first run through a quick intro video on UI UX. But before we go ahead to discuss, what we are meant to discuss today, which is the principles of design. Okay. All right, just give me a second. I'm going to present. Let me go ahead and share that video. Hold on. All right. Okay. Welcome back. In our last session, we simply gave an intro to what we'll be looking at during the course of this bootcamp. Yeah, just to confirm, Amaka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Did you also hear the sound coming from this video?
I didn't hear it. Can you please let me listen in?
We'll be covering user interface design and user
Yes, I can hear
experience
you.
design. All right then. All right, let's go. In this video, for those of you that have people that are yet to join, those people, reach out to them, ask them to join. Right? It's a public content, so all they need is just the YouTube link. You can join via your phone. You can join via your your PC. And of course, this session is going to be on YouTube, so you can always come back, right, to watch this again. Okay. I'm going to give a quick introduction once again to user interface design, right? For those of you that were not in the last session, which is the onboarding session for this program, please do well to refer to that video on YouTube, or you can also have access to that video on Telegram, right? And ensure that you are part of the Discord community as well. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube so that when we upload new videos like this, you would get access and notification to such content. All right. So welcome to today's session. All right. So let's get started with what we are going to be covering in this video: user interface. All right. So user interface refers to the point of interaction between the users and a digital product. Right. So when we mean digital products, we're referring to websites, we're referring to mobile applications, we're referring to the software solutions that are embedded on your smart TVs, on your smart fridge, on your smart wristwatch. These are software solutions and they are digital products that definitely would need an interface. So the user interface design, which is done by the designer or the product designer or the UI UX designer, is responsible for coming up with the amazing interfaces that you use in your day-to-day operations, in your day-to-day activities. Okay, so this is what users basically see and interact with on their screens. We are going to be looking at some of the components of UI. Right here I have some notes, so you guys can we'll come back to this video if you need references to some of the items mentioned in this video. All right, so speaking about the components of UI, the first item we have here is visual design. When it comes to visual design, we're referring to a couple of things here. We're referring to the color schemes, we're referring to typography, we're referring to layouts, we're referring to icons. Okay, so just to ensure that I can point at some of these things. So speaking about color schemes right here, when working on user interface design, choosing appropriate colors that reflect the brand and appeal to users is very important, and it makes sense that we understand and learn how to do this the right way. All right, typography basically refers to the process of being able to select fonts and text styles that would enhance readability and the aesthetics of your design. All right, so speaking to layouts in UI design, under the visual design category, being able to structure your content in such a way that is logically and visually appealing to users is actually very important. When you use different applications, you get to see different forms of layout. So take, for example, I'm currently sharing some web app designs on mobin.com. Mobin.com is a place where you can actually get amazing design references from. Right now we are looking at some sample websites such as Polywork, clickup.com, and yeah, we can see Webflow. We can also see Descript. Looking at the landing pages that we can see on this screen, you see we have different layouts, we have different font types, colors that match the branding of this company, as well as match the type of energy that they want the users to feel when they look at these websites. Okay, let's take, for example, we also have some mobile screens here. So speaking about layout, you see the structure of this page on the mobile would definitely differ from what is what is designed for the web or your tablet devices, right? So it makes absolute sense that we get to understand how to structure our contents, our designs, the position of the objects, the logo, the input fields, and the buttons. It makes perfect sense that we know how to position these components based on the type of device that is being targeted, right? So we'll get back to this. We'll get to look at a lot of examples during the course of the program. We'll get to learn a lot around layout design, typography, color schemes, and under the visual design category we also have icons and graphics. Okay, using visual elements to aid navigation and the comprehension of what is being designed is a great one. It's something that UI designers should pay a lot of attention to. Icons can be a very good way to point users at performing the right action that you want them to perform on that page, right? Yes, you can have impressive CTAs with amazing colors, but icons do a great job. Icons, images, and even 3D graphics do a great job at ensuring that the users understand what they are expected to do, given the prompts by the designer on that page. All right, so still under the components of user interface, we have interactive elements. This refers to buttons, menus, forms, sliders, toggles, and even tabs. All right, so design and placement of buttons for actions like submitting forms, navigating pages is very crucial to structuring your user interface. When a user visits your website, they need to understand the next set of actions that you have laid down for them to perform, and most of these actions would come in form of buttons. The colors you apply on these buttons, the way you position these buttons, the size, the font. I mean, it's important that we know how to design buttons right, depending on the context, depending on the action, depending on the expectation of the platform to the user, or depending on the expectation of the user to the platform. All right, so these things should be understood. We would learn about the psychology of these things when we get to discuss UX in a later video or in a later session. All right, speaking about menus, understanding how to structure navigation menus to help users find information quickly is actually very important. So as UI designers, this is something we need to really understand when it comes to aiding better interactivity between the users and the platform. All right, so let's talk about forms. Okay, so right now you understand how to create buttons, you know how to together input fields on a form becomes too much, right? How many input fields should we have on a form? How many buttons, and what is the best way to position these things, to make great UI for the users of that application. All right, so knowing how to create and use input fields, knowing how to work with checkboxes, radio buttons, we're going to see some examples of these things very soon. I'll be sharing that, right? This type is for data entry. We would also learn how to design forms when we start covering the usage of Figma, which is a design tool, the primary design tool we're going to be exploring during the course of this bootcamp. Okay, so we're going to learn how to work with sliders, right? These are, the components and the UI tokens that makes up amazing interactive elements, right? Sliders, toggles, and tabs, basically for adjusting settings or for selecting options and organizing content on our page. Now, speaking of responsiveness, most of you might get confused when you hear this term for the first time. Okay, what does it mean for a design, a user interface to be responsive? All right, guys. So speaking of responsiveness, take for example, you open up Jumia.com on your home computer or your personal computer. What you see on that website looks quite different from what you get to see when you open up that website to your mobile device or your tablet, right? Responsiveness basically speaks to adaptive web design, the ability to make your website or your web pages adapt to different screen sizes. So this is to say that if you open a website like Jumia.com on your laptop, you get to see a different interface. But if you open it up on your mobile, you get to see an interface that also contains the same set of components or the same set of information, but then structured in a different way to fit into that screen size. Okay, so we also call this adaptive web design, which I mean a lot of people know this as responsiveness, especially to those in the web development space. All right, so it also makes a lot of sense that we understand how to apply and appreciate feedback mechanisms. So, for example, working with animations, applying transitions, implementing visual cues that helps the users know when an action has been taken, right? Such as when they press the button, or implementing loading spinners to tell the users that something is loading, or probably giving or showing a bunch of animations that describes when an action is successful or even when an action fails, right? So it makes sense to learn how to work with these transitions and animations, right? I mean, they basically bring about giving the users the type of feedback that they would understand, and they would also know how to proceed to the next step when they receive such feedbacks, right? Working with alerts, working with notifications, basically learning to inform the users if there's an error, if it's successful, if you're trying to warn them of a particular step that they probably missed on the form, or if you're trying to also show them other important information or ideas, right? So these are a couple of things that we've put together to make you understand, what makes user interfaces, right? These are components of user interfaces. In the next video, we'll be explaining user experience design, and would walk you through some of the components and principles. So of course, we can't cover everything in a single video, but we hope to make you understand the fundamentals. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that by the time you get the notification. Thank you very much. Bye. All right, guys. So, by the way, when we say bye, we're not asking you to leave just yet. We're meant to share this material with you before we, jump into what we're covering today. But I think it came in late from the content team, so We just had to, make sure we cover this here. Take some questions before we spend the next, 30 minutes discussing principles of design. Okay. So I see someone is asking, can we please get the PDF or no? This video will be shared. Please, um, let's see. All right, give me a second. I'm going to quickly share this with you. And by the way, if you have any questions, based on what was covered, it was quite fast, but I believe most of you probably have questions. Okay, so we can take them already. All right. In the next 2 to 3 minutes, we'll pick up with what we are going to be covering this evening. All right. So please check out your Telegram. Check out the Telegram channel. This is going to be shared now. All right. So ask questions. Guys, go ahead and drop your questions. We're taking questions except we don't have any, but I believe we should. We do have some questions. Okay. So that recording is being shared with you right away. Go ahead and ask your questions. All right. So my assumption is that we don't have any questions. Okay. Someone is saying, please try and drop the note PDF here. Check the Telegram channel. You would find whatever resource we're sharing with you. Okay. Hope that's clear, Akinwale. Check Telegram. Okay, so for clarity's sake, if we talk about responsiveness, it's not about how the icons or buttons on the app or web response. Sorry. Let me see if I get that correctly. It's not about how the icons or the buttons on the app or web response, but it's ability to operate on different devices. Yeah. So basically, it's the ability to operate on these several devices, whether it's a mobile device, whether tablet size, depending on the size of the screen, you are able to design to target that specific screen. Now, looking at the of course, with context, as a UI UX designer or product designer, right? If you're a web developer, then you are talking about being able to write your code to adapt to these screens. So we're still talking about the ability to have that design or implementation of the design sit on different screen sizes. Okay, so that's responsiveness, also known as adaptive web design. So you can Google that to learn more. When you learn something from a classroom setting like this, it's a great idea to always do additional research on your own, if you can. Okay. I mean, I believe you should learn to do that. Okay. All right. So the material is shared with you. You can check it out on the UI UX designers channel on Telegram. That will be shared with you as well on Discord for those of you that are, probably mostly active on Discord. Okay. All right. So I'll just proceed to share my screen so we can look at. And by the way, thanks to Amaka for the content. Right. Yeah, she was able to put together series of amazing content, and of course we're going to be sharing more. The team would work, to get more resources, to get more materials. Yeah, for you guys. Okay, and let me see. All right, Amaka, if you can do me a favor, right? Please do me a favor. I want you to share um, the link to the material that I will be sharing right now on Telegram. Sharing a
All right, I'll do
window.
that.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Kindly confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, I can.
All right. Okay. So, guys, let me try to expand the screen here so we can see. Give me a second. Aha. I think this is much better. Uh, also take off the banner. All right, good, 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 good. Okay, so this is what we're covering today, right? Design principles. I'm going to be explaining, and I'll be giving, some examples. Basically, we have all those examples here, right? So you see, when we speak to each of these design principles, we give like a definition straight to the point, right? And we also give an example. So take notes. All the items you're going to be seeing in a call out section like this. These are examples. We also share practical case study, right? Case studies that would make you understand where this is applied, or where or when, right? This can be applied. Okay, so case studies are very important. We don't play with case studies when it comes to explaining and teaching people how these things work. All right. So yeah, design principles are the fundamental guidelines that dictate how elements are arranged in a design. Okay, and these principles are, basically there to ensure that a design is not only aesthetically pleasing, but also functional and effective. All right. So, looking at this material, we're going to show you each of these design principles. And by the time we start applying this to our designs, by the time we start covering Figma as a tool or any other tool we get to use, along the line, we would speak to these items as well. When we start covering UX, which is user research and user experience, we will also, mention some of these things. So, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those questions in the chat here on YouTube or even on Telegram, and I'm sure the moderators will pick it up, and I would do my best to respond here, or I can also respond on Telegram if we are running out of time or something. Okay, so the first item here is a contrast, and this refers to the difference between two or more elements in a design. Right? I think maybe I would have shared my entire screen so I can also. Okay, that's fine. Let's not take too much time on this one. So this basically refers to the difference between two or more elements in a design, and the difference can be in color, in size, in shape, in texture, or other properties. Right? So contrast is used to create visual interests and draw attention to certain parts of design. Okay, so let's assume let's assume you have a design, you have your background color. I mean, looking at this design, for example, looking at this content on your screen, this is Notion, right? So if you take a look at the background, where we're seeing, a dark color. You take a look at the text, we're seeing a bright color, right? White. Okay. Um, this is a good level of contrast, right? You have, a good contrast between the two colors you're seeing. This is a contrast in colors, right? Dark color, which is not even black, but I think it's a deep, it's a dark color, probably yeah, maybe an exact decimal color of like 121212, right? I think Figma uses that, or maybe 1E, 1E, 1E. These are hexadecimal colors I'm mentioning here. Okay, and then you have a bright color, maybe white, or maybe something along the lines of white, something very bright as well. so that when users, take a look at the screen, they can see the text very well. Okay, so we have an example here. We say consider a web page where the primary call to action button is bright orange, while the background is a muted gray. The contrast between the orange button and the gray background makes the button stand out. So we're talking about making items stand out based on how you have created that difference. Okay. By the way, this can be even in images, right? The way I learned, about contrast during my days of graphic design, we look at how we position images, maybe two or three images on a part on the same canvas, right? To create, visual meaning. So you probably put the image, um, let's say you put the image of a child, right, and you make it very small. Okay, then you put the image of the mom, you enlarge that image on a separate side of the screen, say on the left, while the image of the child is on the right. The child's image is very small, you can imagine this, and the child of the mom is looking very large on the screen, very close to you, right? Look on the canvas there. I mean, there's a divide, right? So I mean, in a way, it can mean several things to you, the person looking at that design. But right now in my head, I can picture, a gap. I can picture a mom walking away from the child, right? So depending on, the picture itself, maybe the child is crying and you have, the mom basically in tears as well, with that big gap in the center. What you think of as an individual, right? You can of course attribute your own meaning to this, but the point is you have basically created enough contrast that can tell a meaning, that can bring about meaning in that picture. All right. So that was just an example. There are so many ways to think about this. Remember, we said this difference can be in color, in size, in shape, in texture, and so many other properties. Okay. All right. So we have a practical case study. I would want you guys to pay attention to this as well. So this is a case study. A popular e-commerce website used contrast to highlight the discount offers. The original design had a discount percentage in the same color as the rest of the text. Of course, that's obviously would not be very visible. It won't stand out. It won't show meaning. Depending on the color, depending on the font you apply, this can actually tell some sense of urgency, right? Depending on the color, depending on the size of that text, even depending on the weight of the text, right? Is it bold? Okay, is it very bold? Okay, so these things actually add meaning to your design. Okay, so by changing the color, this makes it easy. Okay, yeah, so by having the same color, it was making it easy to overlook. But by changing the discount percentage to a bold red, the website saw an increase in conversions as users were mostly drawn to the prominent discounts. Okay, so this makes sense, right? This makes perfect sense, and I believe most of you might have seen this kind of examples, maybe on Jumia, maybe on some other commerce platforms that you probably have experience with. Okay, so I'll be looking at the chat for questions if there are any before we move on to the next. All right, so what are the things we need to be able to what are the things we need to be able to learn UI UX effectively? All right. So I think you are asking what are the things you need to know to be able to learn UI UX effectively. Well, I think we have mentioned this before in the previous session we had on Telegram. Just primarily you need a roadmap. Okay, let's not deviate from what we are covering here, but you need a roadmap. Understand these things we're mentioning, things like these design principles. Understand color theories. Understand how to use it, a good design tool, at least on the UI end, and then you practice, practice, practice. Follow that roadmap. If you need a roadmap, we already created one. That's what we're using now, and you need to understand that we always learn new things every day, right? It's an industry. You have a lot of things coming in. So before we deviate, let's just move on. Please, if you have questions around what we are covering, that will be better. If you have more questions like this from Sammy, share those questions on Telegram, and we can take that after the class. Okay. All right. So the next item we have here is balance. Okay. So balance in design is about distributing elements evenly across the layout to create a sense of stability and harmony. Okay, so balance can be symmetrical, where elements are mirrored on either side of central axis, or asymmetrical, where elements balance each other without being identical. Okay, so we have a sample design here. A symmetrical design might involve a logo centered at the top of a web page with the equal amount of text on either side. So we're looking at a navigation system here for some websites. Mostly, I think I've seen this around food and fashion related websites. You have a bold big logo at the center. You have um, text menu items on the left and right. That's a symmetrical design. An asymmetrical design might place a large image on one side and balance it with a block of smaller text on the other side. Okay, so that's an example, and here is a practical case study. Of course, I mentioned fashion websites like fashion magazines. Okay, so a magazine used symmetrical balance in their two-page spreads to create a formal, structured appearance. On the page, okay, on one page, a large headline and the image were placed, and on the opposite page, an article with columns of text was evenly spaced. So this created a cohesive and professional look that appealed to their audience. Okay, so you can imagine some of these things. We don't want to spend too much time trying to show, imageries, but if you listen carefully, I'm sure you can actually get to imagine some of these things. We will try to provide, even more materials and more contents, speaking to these things we're teaching today. But if you have questions based on what we have mentioned here, you can also let us know. Please, I hope this material is already shared on Telegram. Okay, so that most of you can cover it already. Right. So let me check the chat for questions. Ask your questions. Okay, you mentioned graphic design. Would that be a plus to discuss? And what if you don't have that skill? Would learning be feasible? Definitely. So graphic design is not UI UX design. Okay. Um, Keep that in mind. UI UX is not graphic design. So I mentioned graphic design because if you have that experience, you are able to come to UI UX with some understanding, right? With understanding of some things I've mentioned in here, right? It makes sense that someone already doing graphic design would find it easier to basically blend in, right? But then, if you don't have any prior experience whatsoever, you can also, catch up, quite quickly. I mean, if you are ready to learn and you practice and you read, um, I think that's all it takes, right? Practice, study, keep practicing, always practice. Connect with people, connect with friends. Practice, practice, practice. So yeah, you don't need to have experience in graphics design before you can become good at what you're doing here. But then if you have that skill, it's a plus. Okay, just keep that in mind. All right. So speaking about emphasis. Okay, let me go back to my screen because I'm looking at the charts. Okay, so emphasis is about making one element stand out more than the others, right? You're trying to emphasize on something. So you have a lot of elements on the screen, but you want the users to pay attention to a particular one in mind, right? You want them to focus more on that particular one. I mean, that is basically you trying to make them emphasize on, or you emphasizing on that item, trying to make their focus, be on that particular item. So this can be achieved through size, color, position, or other techniques that draw the viewer's attention to the focal point. Okay, so this can be achieved through color, position, size. Keep that in mind. It's not just about the position. It's not just about the color. It's not just about the size. It depends on how you choose to, intensify those properties, right? For example, if you take a look at the imagery I have here for emphasis, of course, most of you have seen the text emphasis, but you are definitely looking at the spiral image on the side because it's bold, it's big, right? We're trying to use this as an example to also make you understand how to structure design elements, right? We have an image, we have text, we have the color, right? The text is white, sitting on a gradient of yellow and a bit of red, which is also gotten from the image that is sitting here. The image is, very bold, right? Basically, it's in your face. Okay, so we are emphasizing on this. You pay attention, to what we are explaining here, while also, giving you this image to look at. Okay, all right, for the example, on a concert poster, the brand's name might be the largest, right? The largest, boldest font at the top of the design, with supporting information like the venue, the date, and maybe other details in smaller fonts. They want you to see the brand name, very bold, very big, right? That is where they want your attention to first get to before you pay attention to the other details. Okay, and we have a practical case study. A charity organization redesigned their donation page to emphasize the Donate Now button. Initially, the button was lost among other text and images. By increasing its size, changing its color to a contrasting shade, and placing it in a prominent position, donations increased by 25%. Yes, this is very possible. If you have a design, you're trying to pass a message. Your CTA should be bold. That is what you want people to do, to donate, right? If it's looking small, I mean, it's not showing that necessity. It's not showing that importance, right? So you have to ensure it is bold, it is big, it has a very good contrast so that people can see it and take that action. At least the audience that you're targeting would see it and know what to do. Okay, so emphasis is one of the key principles of design. All right, so the next one we have here is proportion, but I'm going to give us a minute or two to also take some questions if we have any questions in the chat. All right, please, will this link be available to be watched again? Yeah, Joyce. This link will be available on YouTube, and it will also be shared with you on Telegram. So the link to the YouTube video will be shared on Telegram. All right. Please, make sure you subscribe so that if we have other contents, you'll be prompted early enough to join from the start. Okay. All right. So it seems like we don't have any questions for now. Thanks, Excellency Jumo. All right. Thank you, Farouk. Let's move on. The next item we have here is proportion. Okay, so before I proceed, I want you guys to really understand that these things that we are teaching you today, will set a very solid foundation for you when it comes to design. Myself, I've been doing design for a very long time. Basically, in fact, to the extent where I wanted to study fine and applied art. I love designs, drawing, molding, painting. My dad is a fine art, he was a fine art teacher, before retiring. Um, these are some of the things that I would always hear him mention, right? So proportion, there's so many of them, unity, I would always hear this over and over again. And then I found myself, doing a lot of designs, graphics, started very early with UI UX, on Corel Draw, Inkscape before we even moved into Adobe XD. And I mean, it's been a very long time. These things have helped me, right? Every single time I keep finding myself, applying these principles almost in every single design I do, whether it's ranging from graphics to UI UX, web design, mobile design. You will always apply these things, and even if you don't pay attention to them now, by the time you start learning from other people's design, you clone, you learn, you apply, you realize that this is what I've been mentioned. This is something that would have been easier for you if you just try to understand the meaning of these things that you are learning today. Okay, so pay attention to this and ask your questions if you have any question in mind. Okay, proportion refers to the relative size and scale of the various elements in a design. It helps create a sense of order and hierarchy by showing the relationship between different elements. Okay, so take a look at the example in a product listing. The main product image is usually larger than the rest of the text, or maybe additional product images, right? The main image that they want you to see is large, very large, and the proportion indicates that the image is the most important element. Okay, so you make that very large. Probably um, you have, let's say, four other images that can literally sit under the large image, right? In terms of arranging them in grids, or arranging them in a flex like position. They can literally sit under the big image. It shows that you have used that proportion. You have set that proportion to show that the big image you are seeing here is what I really want you to look at. The other images are just the options, basically showing different views of this image. But that big image is what I want you to see. That is the core image of the product. Okay, and of course, you always want that main image to portray what you are actually trying to show the user. Okay, so we have a practical case study. An online retailer redesigned their product page by increasing the size of the product images and decreasing the amount of descriptive text. This shifts in proportion led to a better user experience and a noticeable increase in sales. So as customers were more focused on the product itself. All right, so you want your customers to focus on the product itself, and this is when you apply proportion to your design. All right, so the next item we have here is hierarchy. I'm waiting for some questions. Okay, Farouk is saying these are familiar design principles. Yes, I believe if you have a good foundation in graphics or any other design related field, then this would be familiar to you. And of course, it's everywhere, right? This is applied everywhere, even in art. If you are drawing, painting, molding, these are the same set of principles you are going to learn. Okay, and you are going to have to understand them. All right. So keep in mind, you can always come back and watch this. The material have been shared with you as well on Notion. So yeah, do well to save it, pin it somewhere, bookmark it somewhere. It will definitely come in handy. Okay, you can duplicate it if you want to. Okay, so speaking about hierarchy. Hierarchy is the arrangement of elements in a way that suggests importance, right? So it guides the viewer's eye through the content in the order of significance, often starting with the most important information. Okay, so take a look at this screen you're looking at, for example, right? Obviously, the first thing you're going to see is either the image, the big image, or the text hierarchy, right? I mean, this is hierarchy already. We have applied that, hierarchy text, made it very big. Imagine the hierarchy text you're looking at right now in the image is as small as, the text you're seeing in the body here, right? You probably will not even see it. Okay, so we have made it look big so that you can pay attention to this first before moving on to this, right? We are basically trying to control, the way you look at this content. Okay, the eye tracking. We're basically trying to control the way you look at, this content. Okay, so we have an example. On the news website, the headline is the most prominent element. I'm sure you guys are fully aware of this, followed by the subheading and then the body text. So this hierarchy helps readers quickly identify the most critical information. Okay, and we have a practical case study as well. A financial news website, struggled with user engagement because readers found it difficult to navigate the dense content. By redesigning the site with a clear hierarchy, larger headlines, bold subheadings, and the concise summaries, user engagement improved as readers could easily find the stories that interested them. Okay, so these practical case studies, as I mentioned, we don't play with case studies. We make sure we help you visualize these things or picture what we are trying to describe from the explanations and the examples we provide. So I'm sure this makes perfect sense to most of you. If you have questions, of course, drop them in the chat. The next one we have here is repetition. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat for questions. All right, so let's proceed. I was hoping someone would ask a question. I feel maybe the explanations are very easy for you guys to understand because I'm not seeing any questions yet. All right, so speaking of repetition, repetition involves using the same or similar elements throughout a design to create consistency and unity. Okay, so this can include repeating colors, shapes, fonts, or patterns. I always mention this, especially when we find ourselves working on maybe flyers for our brands, right? Or even working on designs. And I keep mentioning to my designers, try to make sure that the components used for this screen on the dashboard is similar to the components used on this other screen. If you are speaking to the user and you're trying to communicate the same type of data, the same type of information, um you don't want to change everything. Maybe you want to add some things, right? Maybe a specific card should be for the user, talking about products or orders. If someone place an order for a product, and maybe it's a multi-tenant solution where you can have the users see that product right there on the platform. And then you also have admins able to view and see the orders coming in for all the merchants they have on their platform. The user can see a product card, the admin can see the same product card, but then the information you can have on each product card might differ, right? So you can have some other action buttons, or basically some other design tokens, buttons, tags, you know um probably some colors, right? Maybe like a circle with different colors that show the status of the product, or the status of the order, right? Was the order cancelled? Okay. Is it being processed? Was payment made? You can basically show different things, but the familiarity remains there. Okay. If the user moves on, probably to change their account type from a regular merchant to a different type of merchant, they see the same card, but then with more information. But at least that familiarity remains there, right? You are trying to repeat the same type of component. You're trying to repeat the same colors, so that they can understand you better. Okay, consistency would definitely create familiarity. So if users see that your flyer design, you're being consistent, and all you have to do is probably change the content, the heading. But I mean, whenever the users get to see your flyer, they know it's you, right? They know it's you. But if every single flyer you dish out there is totally different, if every single component you dish out there is totally different, you end up confusing the users, right? There's no consistency, there's no familiarity. Okay, so imagine Google. You wake up one day, you hear that Google just made an update to their google.com page. I mean, your expectation is that you get there, it is still going to look like google.com, but probably a few additions, right? Maybe, border radius changed, or, they added a couple of things, but then you don't just get there and you are all of a sudden you're seeing something totally different, right? A lot of people complained about the Figma UI change, although it still looks like the old one, but I mean, a lot of things changed in terms of the positions. I think it was a bit radical, but yeah, I mean, most people are enjoying it, right? But I feel the change was just very fast, and a lot of people got confused, which is why we had a lot of complaints from some of our designers, junior designers, senior designers. Everybody complained at some point. Okay. But yeah, I mean, you just have to get used to it again. But the point is, repetition is good. Repetition is great. It creates that consistency and unity. And of course, that leads to familiarity for your audience, for your users. Okay. So, here's our example. A brand might use the same color palette and typography across all their marketing materials. I think the examples, Amaka, the examples actually capture some of the examples I give, because I actually give those examples before reading this, right? So yeah, so from business cards to social media graphics, to create a consistent brand identity, that consistency will definitely lead to familiarity. And here we have our practical, case study. A technology company created a brand identity by repeating a specific shade of blue across all their communications, from their website to their packaging. And this repetition not only reinforced brand recognition, but also created a cohesive and professional image. Okay, you see that reinforced brand recognition, familiarity, very important. Okay, we'll learn more about familiarity when we get to learning user experience design. Okay, So the next one we have here is reading. We're already at 8:57 p.m. West African time. I'll try to move on fast, but let's see if we have questions in the chat. Emphasis and hierarchy seems to explain or portray the same idea. Yes, most of these things basically, portray the same idea. The point is during its application, right? You begin to see some, differences, right? Vital differences during its application. Okay, so you can look up some of these things, or check out the material that that was shared, right? I'm sure you would get to focus on the example as well. So, fresh, focus on the example. Pay attention to the example. Look at the practical case study, and I'm sure you would get it. Okay. All right. So, speaking about reading, um, rhythm in design refers to creating a sense of movement or flow by repeating, the elements at regular intervals. Okay, so this can be achieved through the repetition of shapes, lines, colors, or texture. And take a look at the example. A series of equally spaced images in a photo gallery create a rhythmic pattern that guides the viewer's eyes through the collection of images, right? So take a look at your photo gallery, for example. The way it's structured. You can say this is structured in grids. If they have a specific pattern, that photo gallery follows, most of the images would definitely, if not all, be structured in that order, right? Except they are trying to give you, probably some images in that same gallery, a different level of hierarchy, right? They might position them separate from the core or the main gallery component. But the point here is that's rhythmic approach to say you are following the same order. It makes the users also know what to expect, right? When they get to the end, they know this is the end. When they are scrolling through a set of items, they know, oh yeah, we are still scrolling because this is the same pattern. We're still following the same pattern until you get to a point, and then that rhythm stops, and you know that, oh, we are currently at the end. Yeah, so this can be achieved through the repetition of shapes, lines, colors, or textures. Keep that in mind. Here we have our practical case study. Okay, an art gallery website used reading by arranging images in a grid pattern with consistent spacing. So this created a visual flow that encouraged visitors to explore more of the gallery's content. Yeah, because you are not at the end yet, so let's just keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep consuming these beautiful images, right? I really want to get to the end because it seems like there's more, right? So this will definitely increase the time spent on the site. Okay, so you see, these design principles are worth knowing because it then makes you understand the psychology of you know the designs you see out there. Okay, all right, so that's our practical case study. Let's move on to the next one, which is pattern. And patterns are repeated designs or motifs that add texture and interest to a layout, right? So they can be used in backgrounds, borders, or as decorative elements. Yes, we all know what patterns are. If you haven't, or if you don't understand, or maybe you don't know what the term that okay, let's put it this way. You've been seeing a lot of designs with patterns, but you probably don't know that they are called patterns. So for example, you have seen some of these large images on this side, right? These are basically patterns, right? I mean, these are different patterns that are applied to give you these objects. These are patterns. All right, so yes, you have seen things like this before. Even on materials, the clothes you wear, I mean, there are patterns on those clothes. Okay, so we have our example. A website might use a subtle geometric pattern in the background to add depth and texture without overwhelming the content. Okay, and our practical case study: a fashion brand used a unique pattern on their website background that mirrored the design of their latest clothing line. So this pattern reinforced the brand identity and made the website more engaging, resulting in a higher rate of customer interaction. Okay, so I mean, our practical case studies always show, what was done, right? Sometimes it shows, the current state, what was done or what was applied, and then the results. Okay, that is how case studies work because we're trying to also make you understand that, if you understand or if you learn and understand how this particular thing, whether pattern, whether we're speaking about white space, whether we're speaking about rhythm, if you understand this thing well enough and you apply it, this is an example of what it can get you. Okay, so yeah, that is it. I'll check if we have any question before we speak to this white space. Please, can you explain the rhythm again? All right, so let's go back to rhythm. We have our definition here. I'm going to walk through this again, including the example and the practical case study. So, rhythm in design refers to creating a sense of movement or flow by repeating elements at regular intervals, right? So, this can be achieved through the repetition of shapes, lines, colors, or textures. Okay, so and I give an example with your photo gallery. So, let's say you use an iPhone, you navigate to photos, or even you use an Android device, you navigate to gallery, right? You see the way you have your gallery images structured, right, in a grid form, okay, and it keeps going. Okay, so you keep scrolling, you keep checking each image, you keep scrolling. Because of that, rhythmic, pattern that you have there, something keeps telling you, oh, we have more, right? So let's just keep scrolling. I want to see more. If I mean, of course, if the images you're seeing there interests you, right? You take a look at websites as well, like commerce websites. They follow the same pattern, right? So when you look at the grid item, they're showing all the products. They have the product image and the price and some other information, and they have similar components, just with a different image and different text. But then you get that rhythm of having a grid-like list of infinite products. You keep scrolling. In fact, at some point, a lot of people stopped using the pattern where they paginate or the paginate, the paginate products where you can click on page one, page two, page three, because they believe that people don't like going to the next page. People don't like going to the third page. I mean, why should I go to the third page? We have a lot of items here. There's no need, because we have paused or we have stopped that reading, right? So what people then decide to do is to create what they call infinite scroll. Now that is the application of reading. Okay, you create an infinite scroll. I keep scrolling. I love the products I'm seeing, and I believe I will get to the end. But for some reasons, I've scrolled past 20 pages already, and I don't know, because the products keeps coming, and I am just following that rhythm on the web page. Right? I keep moving. I keep seeing different products. It doesn't stop. I mean, of course, it will get to a point where it stops, but until I come to my senses to realize that I even have more would come. If I got that page one, page two, page three thing, I would have stopped somewhere, right? And probably select from the first page. For example, most of you don't even go to the second page of Google, right? Although Google also applied reading already. You have to scroll, right? You have to scroll, and you have to see a lot of information. Okay, so we're just giving you that example. Reading is applied when you want the users to keep looking at these items without feeling a sense of you know without having that feeling that says, okay, you have terminated that rhythmic flow that they currently have in mind, or that pattern that they are following. Okay, so our example says a series of equally spaced images in a photo gallery create a rhythmic pattern that guides the viewer's eye through the collection. So they keep moving, seeing that set of image. They keep wanting to see more, right? I mean, this happens to us probably every time, right? Almost every time you get to see different designs structured with rhythm in mind. Maybe it's from a brand, maybe it's in church, maybe it's in the mosque, maybe, I mean, it can be in several places with different contents, different designs, applying rhythm to give that sense of movement or flow to the user. Okay, and we have our practical case studies that says an art gallery website used rhythm by arranging images in a grid pattern with consistent spacing, and this created a visual flow that encouraged the visitor to explore more of the gallery's content, right? Increasing the time spent on the site. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I hope the additional context and explanation I gave made it easier for you to understand. Uh, yeah, yeah, okay. Okay, so Fresh TV. So just like I mentioned, the meaning, right? The meaning, the application is where you find a lot of differences. So if you take a look at most of these, items, for example, pattern, right? Pattern, rhythm, repetition, right? So what you are telling yourself at this moment is, oh, I mean, if I'm repeating items, is that not rhythm? If I'm just repeating items. Now, you need to also understand that, this, for example, let me come back to pattern. Where is pattern? I think I passed that already. So let me come back to pattern. So we said pattern, can be applied in backgrounds, borders, right? And I also mentioned that if you look at, maybe the clothes you're putting on, right? For example, most clothes, you hear people say, "Oh, I love this cloth because of the pattern," right? Um, you call it pattern, you don't call it rhythm, because what you are looking at that moment, it is not necessarily giving you that sense of flow, right? You're just looking at the design. Okay, you're just looking at the design. You're looking at the geometric patterns or the geometric design, or the repetition of images. It can even be um, an apple just drawn on that cloth, following a particular, style, right? It can be an apple, but because of the repetition, okay, on that particular cloth, you are not going to come there to say, oh, this apple is just repeated a bunch of times, right? You're not going to say that. You're going to call it pattern because that is what you love. That is what you believe. That image or that shirt actually gives you. Okay, and as a user at that moment, that is what you're looking at. Okay, now if we come down to repetition, let's look at it from the meaning. Okay, we are repeating the same pattern. For example, the same pattern that you've seen, we are repeating that pattern on our business card. We are repeating that pattern on our website. We are repeating that pattern, or the typography or the color of that particular image, right, or that particular apple on that shirt. We are repeating, that same pattern on a different design. It can be on the website. If it's an apple sitting on a black shirt, for example, you have black and you probably have green. Right now on our website, we apply black, we apply green, right? Looking at the maybe the shape we have on the business card, we see maybe even if it's one apple, but now there's a repetition. That was on the shirt for the workers. That was on the website, right? Maybe not applied in the same form, but then you are seeing the same elements. Okay. Um, what else? So I mean, you're already seeing that consistency. Okay, maybe applied on books that we give out to customers when they visit, right? Maybe we're an agency and we also use it, apply the same design on our pen, black with maybe red apples that are just sitting as patterns. Okay, so it was we once called it a pattern, but now it has been applied into the concept of repetition. Okay, and the same way we can decide to say, even when we have these patterns on that on that book, we also print the name of the company, bold click, for example, very bold on that book, very bold, and we'll probably make the apple smaller on one side. Now the pattern is there, the repetition is there, but now hierarchy also plays in, right? So you see, these things work together. Okay. Speaking of proportion, we said proportion. We are talking about the size and scale of various elements. Now applying different sizes and scale to ensure that we are able to guide the user on what we want them to see, right? We are also creating that proportion. Okay. So we're creating a sense of hierarchy. You see, we also have hierarchy. Remember, hierarchy is also a design principle, right? So keep that in mind. That what we are simply looking at is a combination of different principles that depending on where they are applied, depending on where they sit, right? They would basically in your head, you'll basically see them as similar, which is why we make sure that we share the examples and the practical case study. Because if you don't think about it from the case study point of view or the example, then in your head it's just the same thing. I mean, this confuses a lot of designers. Even senior designers still gets confused by some of these things. Okay, so I don't know, hope that helps. All right. Okay. Okay, so I think we're already past. Oh, wow. It's already past 12. Past 9, sorry. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just run through these ones. And if you have more questions, I'll take them on Telegram. White space. So, white space, also known as negative space, is the empty space around and between elements in a design. It helps prevent clutter, improves readability, and it can be used to focus attention on specific elements. So, we have a minimalist web page design that might use large amounts of white space to highlight a single product image and a call to action button, making the design clean and focused. We have a practical case study here. A tech startup landing page was initially crowded with too much information, leading to a high bounce rate because, of course, people don't like, I mean, it depends. Not people don't like, but I would say some people, right? I mean, culture affects or culture plays in here. A lot of people, depending on their culture, will probably not like, you know, a lot of information. They probably, want less information. Okay. So when I mean culture, I'm referring to, the environment that, these people, what these people are used to, right? I'm not referring to the Yoruba or Igbo culture. Okay. All right. So after redesigning the page to incorporate more white space, the bounce rate decreased and user engagement improved. So as the content became more digestible and the call to actions, also, yeah. So while the content became more digestible, the call to actions became more prominent. Okay, so we have movement, and the movement in design guides the viewer's eye through the composition, creating a sense of action or progression. Okay, so this can be achieved through lines, shapes, or the positioning of elements. Okay, so yeah, you might also say, oh, is movement not rhythm? Well, I mean, that's why I said also look at the meaning. Okay. So it's more about understanding, the meaning of these things and the practical, case studies. That is where you get to understand, what this actually is. Okay. So a web page might use arrows or diagonal lines to direct users from the headline to the CTA button, creating a clear path for the viewer's eye to follow. Okay, probably using some sort of animation or transition as well, to show this clear flow from one position to the other. Okay, so the designer is practically creating that movement using some visual cues, right? So it can be achieved through lines, shapes, or the positioning of elements. Okay, so our practical case study, an infographic designer used movement by arranging elements in a zigzag pattern, leading the viewer's eye from the top left to the bottom right. Okay, so this intentional direction of eye movement help convey the information in a logical and engaging manner, making the infographic more effective. All right, so please make sure you come back to this. I'm trying to see that we round up already. So variety. So this adds interest to a design by incorporating different elements such as colors, shapes, or textures. While variety keeps the design dynamic, it should be balanced with unity to avoid visual chaos. All right. So a dynamic page might use a mix of fonts, colors, and shapes to engage users and keep the content visually stimulating. We have our practical case study that says a digital marketing campaign use a variety of combining different types of media, videos, images, and infographics within the same campaign. And this mix kept the audience engaged across different platforms and led to higher engagement rates compared to previous campaigns that used a single type of media. So before this class, I remember discussing with my designers, and I mentioned that, oh, how about we have different flyers, with different designs, with different different images, or different types of images, but of course we still maintain that brand identity, the colors, right? We still maintain some of those information, so that when people see this, they know this is from Top Universe. Although the first one might have, like, the picture of a guy, the second one might have the picture of a girl, the third one can have picture of probably even someone more mature, right? Someone probably in his 50s. Okay. The point is, we are trying to convey a message that says we are coming out here to teach you technology, teach you UI UX, teach you how to design, get you into the industry, get you started with a career in tech for free, but we are speaking to different audience because of that, because of the images, right? Um, yeah, so that's the point here. We're creating variety, right? And at the end of the day, if that particular flyer or design speaks to you, then yes, I mean it means it did the job. Okay, so we have unity. Unity is a sense of harmony between all elements in a design. It ensures the design feels cohesive, and that all parts of the design works together to support the overall message or purpose. So we have our example. A company's branding might use a consistent color scheme, typography, and imagery across all platforms to create a unified brand identity. Okay. All right. So we have our practical case study, but I would want you to, you know, uh, go through that yourself. It's already 9:18. I'm going to keep the remaining 2 minutes for questions. All right. So if you have any question, too well to share in the chat. All right, and make sure you fill the attendance form. So thank you everyone. Um, yeah, Amaka, if we have any announcements, I think we can actually drop it in right now. Maybe on Telegram or Discord, or if you want to say it here on the call, please go ahead. Thank you very much, guys.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Hi guys. So I don't have any other thing to add. Just go ahead and fill the attendance form. It's very important. This would determine if you get into the project phase. So please fill it is in the chat. That's all for me. Thank you so much, Mav.
All right, thank you very much. So yeah, we'll wrap up here. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. I'll see you in the next class. Goodbye.